I still think, and I truly believe that 2020 is going to be a hiccup year for us, but 2021, you're gonna come out of your winter hibernation. You're gonna see new things in downtown Hartford that you hadn't seen before. And why does somebody in Farmington or Windsor or Simsbury care about that? Because you already mentioned they've got to be a suburb of an urban area, and that urban core has got to be strong. It's got to be something that people want to be a part of.
Hey, it's Ari Santiago, President and CEO of IT Direct. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Made in America podcast, a COVID-19 edition. I am really excited today. After a long time in the making, I've got David Griggs, President and CEO of the MetroHartford Alliance on. David's a great economic development person, started out doing that career in Buffalo, extremely successful there, moved on to the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then joined us here in Hartford a couple of years back. David, I'm so pumped to have you on and hear your views. Thank you for taking the time today.
Well, thank you for the invite, and very happy to be part of this.
So let's just start kind of with the same two questions we always ask on the Made in America podcast, David. What do you make and why do you make it?
What do I make? I make people love what we already know is great, and that's Hartford. And why do I do it? I do it because I love to do it. It is something that has long been an interest of mine, which is what makes a city great, and how can I help influence making a great city. So part of the reason I do it is because I love to do it, and here I am.
There you go. So I guess let me start with kind of a really basic question. Why Hartford? Why did you decide to come here, and now that you are here, what do you see as the critical assets to generate that love?
Yep. I love this question because it takes me back to the other communities that I've lived and worked in, and I can go back just to Minneapolis, St. Paul. I was working in Buffalo, New York, and when I took the job in Minneapolis, St. Paul, people in Buffalo were laughing at me. They said, "You are not only going to freeze your butt, but you're also going to freeze your career." And I took that more as an opportunity, because what essentially was happening in Minneapolis, St. Paul was they were allowing everybody else to tell their story. They weren't out actively telling the world who they were and how great they were or are. They were allowing their surrounding communities to tell their story. So whenever it came to taxes, you'd have South Dakota, who's got very little tax rate, telling the Minnesota story about taxes. Wisconsin would talk about workforce, and Iowa would talk about incentives, and there was always somebody else telling their story. And I found that to be true here too. Is Hartford, by and large, had no presence or a thought of mind in the rest of the U.S. Now, people kind of knew it as the insurance capital of the world, but that kind of fell off and fell out of favor, and so it just wasn't used. It wasn't out there. And then the story about the Northeast became Boston or New York, and it wasn't about anybody else. So here was this opportunity, as I sat in Minnesota looking at Hartford and saying to myself, oh my God, like there are communities that would die to have the things Hartford has, with the insurance, with aerospace, with these, household name companies. everywhere. And who's telling that story? Nobody. It was, in large part, it was what I saw in Minnesota taking place right here in Hartford. And that's what, why here? What an opportunity.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think, it's really interesting. I told you kind of pre-show how excited I was. I remember reading the article in The Current back in spring 2018, talking about you're coming to town here. And I think, success breeds more success and a track record of success, while past performance, what do they say in every stock portfolio? Past performance is no guarantee of future performance. But to your point, I think, having done it before and seen that story. And so, being someone that's done it before and gone to a place that maybe wasn't out there telling its story, when you get to a place like that, what do you do to just look around and say, okay, how do I build this story? What are the assets you look for? What's the process you go through to start putting that story together and getting ready to tell it?
Well, in large part, the story is already here, right? I mean, the people who call Hartford home, and it doesn't matter if you were born here or you were drawn here, we all call it home. And it's our stories about why we're here and why we stay here. We don't have to make it up. We just have to tell it. And part of telling the story is to just admit who we are, to not say that we're going to be something that we're not, that our aspirations match who we are. So in large part, it's just, taking something as simple as, using that we are the insurance capital of the world brand and putting it back out there and living it and making it known to the world who we are. And that it's intentional, right? You have to actually do it. You have to find avenues by which you can get that word out there. You have to be very active, not only in the community to understand the industries that we're trying to attract or the industries that we're great at. We have to understand them in a very intimate way, but then we also have to be able to take that and tell the world who we are, what we know, and why we're great at it. So it in large part, I think it's easy and obvious. There's a formula, and we just have, if we're going to make a chocolate cake, we just got to get the right ingredients and go to work and make it. And if we want to, make a greater Hartford region, we know how to do it. And it's not going out and finding a silver bullet. We are our own silver bullet. We just got to, get out there and
get off our derrieres and get it done.
And get it done, right?
Yeah. So talk about this. Obviously, the Made in America podcast, big focus in manufacturing. Clearly, the insurance capital of the world moniker is here and here to stay, and something we're all very proud of. How do you connect manufacturing to Hartford's story, both for the present and for the future?
Sure. In our world, we go out, and who we typically talk to are site selectors or people who influence business decision making. So it could be real estate firms, the big ones like CBRE or Cushwake or Jones Lang LaSalle. Could be attorneys, could be accountants, could be anybody that businesses typically would turn to when they're saying, okay, we need to expand, help us figure out where we need to expand to. So we spend a lot of time marketing to those types of people. And when you come out of the gate with the insurance capital of the world, to that group, the first thing they'll say is, yeah, that's great, but what else? And so they just, I don't have to kick open the door. They kick it open for me. And that's when we get to say, we're the number one manufacturer of jet engines in the U.S. Right? We have submarine production. What do you want? We make it. Submarines, helicopters, jet engines, right? We've got it. So leading with insurance actually an opportunity for us to talk about everything else, and that's when we're able to get people to kind of sit back, and none of it's made up, right?
Right.
None of it is aspirational. It is just the facts. And so early on in my tenure here, one of the first things we needed to do was we needed to build our own research department. We needed to have the facts. And not only did we need to know the facts about who we are, but we needed to then do all the comparisons to other regions around the U.S. so that when we go out and compete for new jobs, we already know who we're competing against. And once you know who you're competing against, now you can put up a better offensive approach to here's who we are and here's what we're not.
Right. So people know where to go, and you selecting the right people that'll be here for the long haul. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. What is the Alliance's role in retention and growth of companies that are already here? Because one thing that I think people who are students of history will note, I mean, this goes back a long time. People think this is a current phenomenon, but you can go back to, the boat building in Hartford, right? Used to be called the Phoenix Building. It's an iconic building. It was the first two-sided building in the world, been imitated many times since. But if you go back and read that story, Phoenix almost moved to West Hartford because when they were looking in the 60s of where to go, and considering leaving, no one in the city government, no one in the city chamber ever reached out to the president of Phoenix and said, hey guys, don't go, stay. And it was just sort of by a couple conversations and a couple of quick decisions that they built that building, here in Hartford. And boy, what a sad statement it would have been to not have had that. And what a great corporate citizen Phoenix has been in the years since, and so on and so forth. And so I think, at least I guess I'm sort of belaying my prejudice there, but it seems to me like one of the best ways in a business to grow is make sure you don't lose the customers you have while you're bringing on new customers. What's the Alliance's role in doing that in your view, and have you been successful if you think that is a role?
It absolutely is a role. And I would say that what always captures headlines is when you bring a company in. When you save a company from going, it rarely captures a headline. But to your point, the retention of jobs is a job saved. It's as important as anything. And as an economic developer, just statistically, it's about 80% of what we do. Right? The 20% that we're actually able to help bring in captures the headlines, and everybody wants to stand up and cut a ribbon, which is great. We want to celebrate those successes, but the reality of the work is really the companies we already have, because it's those companies that we already have that are going to attract the companies that we want.
Yep.
So we absolutely have to. I mean, so from the Alliance's perspective, we've got the insurance and financial services sector work that we've, the CTIFS is what we call it. But it's focused on bringing together that insurance industry and listening to them and helping to understand what are the market dynamics here in Hartford, what are the market dynamics in the world that are driving where the industry is going, so that we can always make sure that we're ahead of the game. And it's that kind of work that if you're a company from the outside, if you're sitting in, and you make up the community, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and you're a big insurance company, but you're the only big insurance company, you're kind of out there on your own trying to figure it out. When you look at a market like Hartford and you see this table where you've got all your peers sitting around it, not in competition, but in cooperation about how are we going to manage ourselves through the industry, that's powerful. Right? Companies want to be part of that. So again, it's the industry calls it BR&E, business retention and expansion. The BRE work is the fundamental basis to any economic development organization. How are we doing that as a region? I can tell you that the relationship that the Alliance has with its chamber partners. Now, we have the Hartford Chamber of Commerce, which is a different discussion, but part of the discussion. But we need to be able to partner with somebody like Rose Ponte in Farmington to, she maintains that one-to-one connection with all those companies in Farmington, or in Windsor, or Mary Ellen over in Glastonbury, East Hartford. We have to have those connections, and we have to be a provider of information and service to them. They're the feet on the ground. They're the ones that have that one-to-one connection, and they're the ones that should, to your point of Phoenix, raise the alarm. Hey, this company is looking at moving, or conversely, hopefully we're getting to them well before that, and we're talking to them on a regular basis. Now, we've got a number of initiatives that we're going to be rolling out this year that are designed specifically not only for the Alliance, but for all of our chamber partners to be able to begin to gather information.
So
right?
And maybe this dovetails right into that. What's your view on regionalization? Again, anyone that does any studying whatsoever realizes that, Hartford can't go it alone, and conversely, the suburbs can't go it alone either, right? There's not one example I've ever seen, and I'm certainly not as studied as you are, but somewhat studied. There's not one example I can think of a region that's ever succeeded by just having amazing suburbs, right? By definition, a suburb is related to an urban area. So we need the core, and the core can't, and a core that's 18 square miles and 120,000 people can't compete either, right? We need to be together. What is your view of regionalization, and what are you doing to forward your view of it? Sure.
Regionalization is the only way to go. And those site selectors that I mentioned earlier, when they're looking at communities, they're looking at communities by metropolitan statistical area, a way that our federal government has come up with a way to be able to compare apples to apples from community to community. So that's what we work in. That MSA for Hartford is Hartford County, Tolland County, Middlesex County. So 3 counties. In Minnesota, I had 16, 2 of them in Wisconsin. So managing 3, not a big lift. In Connecticut, people initially looked at me and thought I was crazy. 3 counties from the Sound to Massachusetts, it's too big, right? It's not, right? And the statistics prove it out. We've got plenty of people who live down on the coast who work in Hartford. And when we go out to market who we are, we have to capture all of that information. We have to capture all of that workforce, because that's how we're able to compete. It's our people. It's who we are that makes us competitive. Now, to get to the further into the weeds on this, and we could use Farmington as an example. Here's a community that's got about 36,000 jobs within it. And of those 36,000 jobs, about 5,000, and I think it is actually less, but I'm going to go 5,000, are people who actually live in Farmington.
Yeah.
So you've got 30,000 plus people who work in Farmington, but put their heads on a pillow in a different community. Now, Farmington can't support by itself the businesses that Farmington has. It has to have the region. And conversely, the people who live in, let's say, Hartford, who work in Farmington, great. They come home, they run down the street to the restaurants, they run out for they shop locally. So the money that's being generated by those businesses is helping our region. And to think of us any other way is just not the reality of economics.
Do you see? Yeah, I 100% on the same page. Do you see struggles in getting, or have you had struggles getting people to buy into that, to help people understand that, a job in Farmington should be important to somebody who's economic developer in Glastonbury or Hebron or whatever, because Farmington might be a better spot for them, and if they're competing, they may end up some other MSA.
Yes. Short answer, yes. Is this a uniquely Hartford or Connecticut issue? No. No. Every community in America has the same issue, and this is one thing that I think we can learn from is, from best practice in other communities. It's exemplified again in Minnesota. Not to go back to Minnesota, but if you look at the Minnesota Twins and their logo, it's Minnie on one side and Paul on the other, and they're reaching across the river to shake hands. They're not actually shaking hands. They're right. They're reaching out, but they're not actually shaking. That was the issue we had in Minnesota, where St. Paul and Minneapolis were butting heads. They didn't get it. They didn't understand that they needed to compete as one. And when they did, things changed.
Do you see hope in our area for being more cooperative and collaborative instead of competitive in the region?
Yes, absolutely. And I think this, oddly enough, COVID situation that we're in today is helping us to realize how important our region is, because individual communities are each trying to grapple with the very localized problems, but we're also finding that solutions are coming from the region. So I would like to think that this is actually really trying to shine a light on the fact that, we really are a region, and we really do depend on each other. And the sooner we realize that, and the sooner we stop worrying about what was happening in, if jobs are in Farmington or if jobs are in Hartford, we just need jobs.
That's right. We need jobs. You're right. So let me ask you this. So let's talk for 1 second about what the state of economic development in the greater Hartford region looked like in February 1st of 2020, let's say, which I realize is not that long ago, but feels like maybe several lifetimes ago. Just a very quick primer from your vantage point, David, what did economic development look like? Were we on path for what you believed? And just a very quick high level, what you saw at that point, and you could probably guess where my follow-up question is going to go.
It was an exciting time. And it does feel like a lifetime ago, because the market dynamics, what we do, how we do it, what it looks like, are completely different. We were Hartford Healthcare was going to has a plan to put hundreds of people in downtown Hartford. Now, I'm sure they're not rethinking doing it, but they're certainly rethinking what it will look like. How do you, the way cubes are set up, how many people can you fit in that? So there are changes that are very fundamental to how we will move forward. I think that the push for residential in our downtown core, and the number of residential units that we have currently in the downtown core, will be one of the things that helps save our downtown core. When you take out all of the workforce that we had downtown, and when we come back, we won't come back the same way. I mean, we already know that 50% of every office is only allowed in at any one point in time. So it will be different. In order for those restaurants and carryouts and everything else to survive, it's going to survive because we've started to import people, the residents. The more residential we can get downtown, the better Hartford is going to be able to survive economic downturns. And that is one of, I think, the fundamental differences just in the makeup of our downtown core between 2008 and today. Never mind the systemic issues that caused 2008. If you look at the fallout, let's say, one of the things that's going to change the fallout for Hartford is the residential.
What does economic development look like in, we've talked a lot about on this podcast of, I look at sort of the four phases or four stages of COVID, right? There's what I call the change phase, which I think we're kind of through that now. We have the abnormalcy phase, then we have the recovery, and then the thrive phase. And so as I've been saying, I think this abnormalcy and recovery are going to bleed into each other because there is not a clear stoppage point. I'm curious from your standpoint, what does abnormalcy look like from a MetroHartford Alliance economic development perspective? How are you doing things differently? How are you managing to accomplish the goals of the Alliance in this different time? And bleed that into, what does recovery look like? How do we start to get back on that horse again and say, you know what, times might be tough, but wherever there's challenges, there's opportunities, where crowded cities are a problem, Hartford has some advantages, et cetera, et cetera. What are you looking at to get into abnormalcy and into recovery?
Well, I agree with the opportunity, and we have already begun, and we should have it rolled out next week, a campaign in the Boston market promoting Hartford. And, there's a product that's out there that somebody wants to buy because they're in a market that they don't want to be in anymore. And Hartford is in, quite frankly, a really, really, really sweet spot for perhaps people who want to get out of overcrowded cities, but still maintain that connection to them, right? If you're from Boston, you want to be close to Boston, but maybe you don't want to pay the cost of being in Boston. And we don't need a lot, right? I mean, how many, right? If we get, we only need, we need to attract that much to have a really profound effect on the future of our region. The number of residents or jobs that may be looking to pull out of New York or a Boston because of this, how many of those do we need to capture just being who we are, right? We are a low density community that has great amenities and great connections to each of these two cities where people want to be. So we're looking at this as an opportunity to actually ramp up our story, to ramp up the opportunity to tell these two markets who we are. And from a cost perspective, downtown rents in the CBD of Boston are around $98 a square foot, and downtown Hartford, they're around $24. So if you're a business that needs to develop a larger floor plate, well, maybe you take 100 of those people and place them in a market like Hartford, where it's not going to, run you broke to do, and it's easy to manage because we're an hour and a half away.
There you go. Yeah, not bad.
So there's a number of things that we can and are doing, not based, again, on anything other than the reality of who we are. Right? We're not marketing anything else. This is who we are. So the abnormalcy, becomes normal really quick when you just embrace it.
That's right. Yeah, that's a great point. And I want to touch on something that maybe just to help clear up a quick thing, which may or may not be related, which is, the Alliance has two parts, right? There's the Alliance part and the Hartford, Chamber part, right? And maybe you could just quickly clear for the audience, what is the difference? Why do we have two things, and why is it important to have them like that?
Well, I'll go back to this being a decision made by our board of directors in 2018 when they brought me on. It reaffirms a decision made by a board of directors back in 1999 when they took the Regional Growth Council and the Hartford Chamber of Commerce and said, we need to bring these two entities together, not to form one giant entity, but to reduce the overhead cost of the shared services that each of them were doing and take the goals of each and, accomplish them. So we're taking the opportunity, our board directed us to say, Hartford deserves to have a chamber of commerce, a true chamber of commerce that's getting into the neighborhoods and the heart and soul of the neighborhood business community, while at the same time we need the Alliance to be marketing our region as a whole and trying to help direct economic development from a more holistic and regional scale. So again, COVID and the situation that we've got with this, it's affecting our restaurants and salons and bars and all these things that are very neighborhood centric. And it couldn't have worked out, as horrible as it sounds, better. COVID absolutely defined the need for a chamber of commerce, for somebody to be out there getting information to the mom and pop businesses who don't have a team of attorneys, who don't have a team of accountants, who, when the state legislature says everybody has to have mandatory sexual awareness training, harassment training, and you're a company, and it's for any company, I think 2 people and above, right? You're like, okay, how do I do that? Well, this is where a chamber typically would come in and say, here's how we're going to do it. Here's what we're going to, and that's exactly what the Hartford Chamber did. So COVID now, how do we survive? And the Hartford Chamber, led by Julio Concepcion, came up with this idea for biz bonds. So
yeah, I love the biz bonds. It's been great.
And roll that out, right? To help our companies survive. And that's absolutely something a chamber should do. And you
should say what the biz bonds is, because I don't know if everyone knows that.
All right. So sorry, a biz bond is essentially you buying a gift card for all intents and purposes, that for $25 today, that after a certain amount of time will be worth 20% more. So $30 in after, I think, June 1st or July 1st, I forget which one it was, but you're getting the dollars into the hands of the businesses today. It's actually the opposite wimpy, right? So you're paying for a cheeseburger today that you're going to get in 2 months.
It's a great idea. You really got out there and basically, to your point, said, the way framing around biz bonds, really kind of that bringing people together, investing in the local community by saying, I'm going to pay you today for a service, a haircut, a meal or whatever in 2 months from now. And in exchange for that, the value of that $25, to your point, is going to be $30, in July. What a great, creative, market-driven idea to help businesses in our local community. What's just tremendous.
Yes, and we even made membership to the chamber free. So the power of that connection is so important right now. The free flow of information and the promotion of our businesses is so important today that Julio and the the chamber's board decided, let's just make it free. Let's get everybody in there so that the communication and the promotion will just happen. We need our business community to come back from this as quickly as we can.
So let me take right into that, which I think is, thinking about the audience here, why do you think it's important that when we're all looking around at our businesses and saying, where can I manage my costs? How can I keep my business growing? Why do you think it's important? Two things. Number one, why is it important to still invest in marketing and getting the word out for whether you're the Alliance or a regular business? And number two, why is it important to prioritize maintaining investing in the Alliance or other chambers now when all of our dollars seem like they're worth $10?
Right. And I agree, the power of a chamber, the power of the Alliance is in our ability to bring people together, right? That's our number one thing. And we as a region and as a business community are not going to come out of this current pandemic better unless we come together. And that is the fundamental power of the Alliance. Was before, is now, will be in the future. It's the convening power. As I mentioned, the IFS, bringing all of those companies together to understand what their challenges are so that we could help them address those challenges, but also then to promote. Right? We have an opportunity now in front of us because of the work from home. Well, if you're going to work from home, you could work from home in 600 square feet in New York City, or you could work from home, right, in a house with the backyard that you could throw the kids out in here in the Hartford region. So there's opportunity for us to market, and it's just who we are, and we should be proud of who we are, and tell we don't have to. We want to tell the world. We really just need to tell Boston and New York.
Tell our neighbors.
Tell our neighbors, hey, look, not for nothing, this is who we are. And if you want to have a house instead of 600 square foot apartment, you can do that and work from home.
Right. The water's nice. Come on in.
Right.
So let me ask you this. How can the Alliance do more to promote the manufacturing story, and grow that, here in Connecticut? We talked about the history, we've talked about the present and the future of it. They're great paying careers. They accomplish things. It gives people a sense of pride. We make things. Talk a little bit about your view on manufacturing in this area and its role with the story the Alliance tells.
Well, there are two industries that have been and always will be the backbone of this region. We are one of 6 communities in America that the Smithsonian decided to highlight for innovation. We are the only community in America that was highlighted for innovation in manufacturing. That's not us making anything up, right? That is just what it is. The Smithsonian said Hartford does manufacturing innovation better than any community in America did early on and does today. That's just what we are, and it will be again a foundation for what we market. I mentioned that we're number one in manufacturing of jet engines. That just is. But we need research to be able to tell us, okay, well, if we're number one, who's number two? And how do we compete against them? What can we learn from them? So these are things that we're very active in. As a region, we're also very lucky to have these two industries that are seemingly completely different, but you've got a blue collar and a white collar, and we've got global leaders in both. If you're great with your hands, we've got a job for you. If you understand an actuarial table, we've got
a job for you. Yeah, no, it's a great juxtaposition and a great place to be. You talk about the IFS. What does the Alliance do to get engaged with things like the CMMC or create like a similar organization to get that thought leadership to understand about manufacturing and move that ball forward? And jet engines you mentioned, sub-building, of course. Stanley's taken a big leadership in Industry 4.0, and of course everything Stanley's done historically with supporting the doers movement. And let's not forget medical device manufacturing is tremendous, in this area. What's the Alliance? What can the Alliance do to convene those people and build that story?
In full honesty, we've historically not done an overwhelmingly great job when it comes to manufacturing. We've got the IFS, we've got a healthcare organization as well. We've set up a manufacturing group. We're naming it Manufacturing Hartford. We're leaning on Stanley Black & Decker and Marty to help us really understand who needs to be around the table. I can tell you that formerly UTC, now Raytheon Technologies, but our friends over at Pratt & Whitney, now Otis Elevator, have been tremendous partners in helping us really take what the manufacturing sector is here in Hartford and make it a bigger piece of who the Alliance is moving forward. It absolutely has to be. We have to give it the same gravitas as our insurance community. We have to get all the right players around the table to direct us. This isn't something that anybody on our staff directs or I direct. We have to listen to our companies. We have to have them tell us, here's what we need from you, here's how, and bring them around, again, the power to convene, to bring them around the table. We've got other organizations like CBIA, we've got the ACM, we've got lots of great organizations that are helping the local community. But what we don't necessarily have is somebody out marketing that.
Amen to that, David. And I think that's a great place. The Alliance can have a voice and can really bring value to the table. Let me throw my hat in the ring to you, kind of here publicly, saying, to the extent I can help you convene those people, please lean on me to do that. And I'll just put this out there: A, for making a point, and B, for your consideration, which is there's a view of the Alliance, I think, in some circles that it's the province of the big boys, right? You've mentioned Pratt & Whitney and Otis and Stanley Black & Decker. Please, I'm a huge fan of all those, and I think everyone here super appreciates and wants to support them in these areas. We also want to make sure that there's a voice, for the other companies, many of the Made in America guests, past and future, who really help not only in that supply chain, but also sort of help in that innovation circle. And so, hopefully you agree that they deserve a seat at the table and can be a part of that great story, because they do help create so many jobs and help be a big fabric of that story.
I totally agree and absolutely need them at the table. And, I would go even further to say that our the people that we talk to at, be it Stanley or Otis or UTC, that they are saying the same thing. Like, the reason they exist and we can be the jet engine number one manufacturer in America is because of our suppliers, because it's because of the ecosystem that has been built here that makes us competitive. So once
again, going back to your point, right? It's not about competition, it's about cooperation, right? The Pratt & Whitney without the supply base doesn't make Greater Hartford the number one jet engine maker, and conversely, the supply base without Pratt & Whitney, right? It's that symbiotic relationship, starting from the support in the community, the schooling, the bringing the people, because we are the community, is the people, the area is the people that live here, and everything. That's it's tremendous. Give me something that makes you positive for the future, hopeful, for the future of the region.
I want to be careful on this, but when I look at even my organization, we have a youthful exuberance that has taken hold. You know, when I first got here, I don't think I was out of the airport before I was schooled on the 169 towns that make up our great state. And as COVID hit, I was told about how, you know, in the 80s, it took us 20 years to come out of this. And they, you know, I don't know. I wasn't here in the 80s. Outside of it being a bad Sirius XM radio station, I don't care about the 80s. I care about today and our future, and that's where we need to have the youth lead us. We can't get caught up in what happened before or how we failed before. Nobody cares. We can learn from it, but we need to move on, and that's where the youth is coming in. They view the world so differently than some of the older folks who have been around for a long time. And the great news is they're stepping up. They want to take leadership positions. They want to influence. And this is where I absolutely see the Alliance again playing a big part, is we have the power to convene. We've got HYPE. We've got the Hartford Young Professionals, and those young professional groups from all over our region are filled with young people who want to influence the future of their community. And on the Alliance's, big boys table, let's say, are the people who can influence, and they want that influence of the youth. They want, because we're all out competing for talent, right? Economic development is as much about our ability to attract talent as it is to attract the next company. So we have to listen to the youth. We have to listen to what's important to them, and we have to make our community ready to serve those needs. And what makes me hopeful is the fact that I employ a good number of them, and they want to make a difference, and it's exciting to see.
That's terrific. And I'll just end on this last question, which is lots of hopes and dreams and people that are doing stuff. Are you seeing fruits of the labor? Are we seeing some small buds that could germinate? Are we already starting to see being able to reap some of the rewards? Where are we in that cycle in your view?
Short answer, yes. There's a pre-COVID answer that I had, and I still absolutely feel this to be true. The downtown housing movement isn't going to die down. I could be dead wrong. I don't think so. I think that movement is alive. Well, that's going to help propel our region forward. When you look at 2020, I'd already pegged 2021 as a transformational year for us. So much of the development that's happening in our downtown core will be done over the course of 2020, with going into the winter and then into the spring of 2021. My view is that in the spring of 2021, people will come into Hartford and kind of have that look of, well, where did that come from? And why are all these people out? And why are there dog parks? And why are there, how did all this happen? And all that happened by things that are being done today, by the work that folks like the CRDA is doing to rehab some of these old office buildings in the downtown core. I still think, and I truly believe, that 2020 is going to be a hiccup year for us, but 2021, you're gonna come out of your winter hibernation. You're gonna see new things in downtown Hartford that you hadn't seen before. And why does somebody in Farmington or Windsor or Simsbury care about that? Because you already mentioned they've got to be a suburb of an urban area, and that urban core has got to be strong. It's got to be something that people want to be a part of, and that's what Hartford is becoming.
I love it, David. That's a great place to leave it. Thank you so very much for coming on and sharing your views. And I hope at some point down the line we'll get to do this face to face.
Thank you.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct.
As always, thanks so much for tuning in. I definitely want your feedback and hope you subscribe. But what I want the most is to build a community where we learn and grow with each other. I hope you're getting a lot of value out of the time we're spending together. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time.